Hello and welcome to Taboo Malta. It's the show where we discuss taboo topics in the sunny island of Malta. So, today we've got a special guest. He's Marc. Hi, Marc.
Hi, all right.
And we'll be talking about HIV. So, Marc, can you introduce yourself to our audience, please?
So, thanks for having me over. My name is Marc. I am an HIV and sexual health activist. I am also a gay man and also a person living with HIV.
Okay, all right, okay. And so how did you find out you've got HIV, first of all, if you'd like to talk about that?
So, how did I find out? Okay, so basically, I was getting ill. I got the flu first.
Okay.
And, it's a normal flu. You don't really think that much about it. But I do remember that my fever was really high. I almost was like delirious. Felt a bit like a Lana Del Rey video.
Just needed some flowers.
Basically, for the ambiance.
Yes.
And anyway, that passed. And 2 weeks later, I got ill again. With another, gastric this time. And I was a bit like, okay, what's going on here? And a couple of months passed, and I got ill again. And I'm like, okay, it's time to run some tests. Something is clearly wrong here. Basically, I ran the tests. I ran everything. And basically, they were like, listen, everything's fine, but we need to redo the HIV tests. And I was a bit like, I mean, I've been tested in the past, and it's always been negative. And it's never been, we're going to retest. And anyway, it turns out it came back positive. So that was a bit of a shock.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, that's how I found out about my HIV diagnosis, basically.
Okay, and how long was it before you took the previous HIV test to this point in time that you realized?
I think it was about a year or two. I was in a relationship in the meantime, and after I broke up, I was kind of trying to get over that person.
Exactly. Rebound
stage. And, things happened.
Exactly. All right. Okay. And did you go directly to a GP, or did you go to a sexual health clinic, or how did you go about all this?
So in this case, my friend is actually a doctor. I mean, my friend's father is a doctor, so he kind of helped me out there and ran the tests for me. So that was more of a casual kind of thing with him. Okay. But obviously there are a number of outlets you can do for testing.
All right, okay. And when it comes to awareness or education about HIV, did you just come to that conclusion naturally, or did you kind of research up a bit on it? Because I don't see much material out there on what to look out for, the symptoms you just told me. I had no idea, for example.
So, I mean, I had to deal with my own stigma and lack of awareness at the time. I mean, I knew that people living with HIV were taking their medication, for example. And obviously it wasn't the AIDS crisis, so people aren't dying anymore. But I didn't know exactly to what extent it would impact my life. So in the end, really, I mean, I take my medication. It's 1 pill a day now. It wasn't before.
Okay, it was more than that.
Yeah, we can talk about that later.
Okay.
So you take 1 pill a day, and basically your life expectancy is normal, or near normal is what they say. So I still have a long life.
Yay, okay.
Where I can work a lot. And also there is undetectable equals untransmittable, which I did not know about at the time. So when I found out my diagnosis, I was like, I'm never going to have sex again. I'm going to become a cloistered nun or something. That's it, no more. We're closing the doors. But no, so basically how it works is you start treatment, and your viral load, which is the level of virus in your body, starts going down. And basically, once it reaches a certain level, anything under 200 copies per milliliter of blood is non-transmissible.
Okay.
So what is undetectable is the amount of virus is so low that the test can't actually measure it. So generally under 50 or under 20, it depends on the test you're doing. In Malta, I believe it's under 20. So I can actually have sex with or without condoms technically, and I would not be able to transmit HIV.
Okay. And can you explain to the audience the difference between HIV and AIDS? Because people seem to use that in the same sentence. You
Okay,
mentioned
so
the
yeah,
virus.
they're not the same thing. So HIV is the virus. So it is the
Okay.
virus that attacks your immune system.
Okay.
So with medication, what happens is your virus goes down, and then your CD4 count, which is your immune function, what
Okay.
fights off viruses and infections and so on, that goes up. So they're kind of inversely proportional to each other.
Alright,
So the virus
okay.
goes down, the CD4 goes up. So your immune system is working properly.
All right, okay. And are you more susceptible to other? So you mentioned obviously it affects your immune system. So for example, COVID. We were talking about COVID before. Like, are you more likely to get bad side effects of that because of your immune system, or no? If it's
I mean, it depends. It depends on how well your immune system. Mine's very well, so it's on a case by case basis.
Okay.
Now, to go back to what HIV and AIDS is. So HIV is the virus of the human immunodeficiency virus, which attacks your immune system basically. But if you take medication, you're fine. Like me, I'm undetectable, so my immune system is fine. The virus is low, I can't transmit it. AIDS, on the other hand, is when HIV has broken down your immune system. So you haven't started medication, and it's a syndrome technically. So you're more susceptible to opportunistic infections, certain cancers, and what have you, because obviously your natural defense system is not working how it should be.
Okay, so that's what we saw in Freddie Mercury, for example.
Basically. So what happens there is HIV erodes the immune system, and then that becomes AIDS after a certain amount of time. Nowadays, I mean, with the advances in medication, we don't see AIDS that often. And you can't transmit AIDS. This is something that a lot of people are like, oh, you can transmit AIDS. Like, no, you transmit HIV, not AIDS.
Okay, that's really interesting. I didn't know that, for example. All right, okay. And when you found out you had it, I'm sure there was a bit of stigma with your family and friends. Like, how did you deal with that?
Well, actually, I mean, I think I'm one of the lucky ones. I mean, I spoke to my friends about it straight away when they came to the clinic with me. I had an army with me. Like I had 5 people outside the doctor's office. And yeah, I mean, he sat me down and he was speaking to me like, listen, you're fine. I mean, nowadays it's a manageable condition. It's a chronic condition, basically. But you're going to be fine. And like at that point, I was in shock mode. So I'm like,
Just like nodding and smiling.
basically, I mean, not smiling so much.
Under shock, bro. Yeah. Yeah.
But then I kind of did have a mini breakdown when I had to tell them, because when you speak to someone about it and you tell them, oh, I'm HIV positive, it becomes real then. When you say it out loud, it becomes real. But no, I mean, we were thinking, where could it come from? Who was it? Blah, blah, blah. But these are questions. In the end, it doesn't make a difference. So it's pointless obsessing about.
Yes.
And the end result remains the same. My parents were also very supportive. So, I mean, they had questions, obviously. My mother had done her research already.
How sweet, honestly. Okay.
My dad needed a bit more
Time.
to process, so he had more questions. So I took him to the clinic with me, actually, and the
Okay.
doctor actually told him, listen, this is how it works and whatever. And that at least put his mind at ease.
All right. Okay. Okay. And was anyone like scared to touch you or to hug you or like kiss you on the cheek? Because I've heard these stories.
No.
Okay.
I mean, I had the friend. She's like, "Can you still cook?" I'm like, "Yes, I can still cook." And she's like, "Okay." Hugs me. It's like, when are you cooking?
That's all that matters, basically. Oh my god. Okay. All right. Okay.
No, but I think I've been one of the lucky ones. I've had a couple of dates where people are a bit like, I think I was on a date once and like we went for a walk. It was really nice. We kissed, whatever. Went for a coffee. I don't know how we started speaking about sexual health, because obviously, like, my NGO work has to also come into my dating.
Of course.
Of course. And anyway, I told him I was positive, and I'm telling you, this man goes white.
Oh my God.
Like I could see the color drain, and I was a bit like, "Are you okay?" He's like, I'm like, "Do you want to go for a walk?" And anyway, we're walking around Mdina, and he is freaking out. He's like, "No, I have to go get tested and whatever." I'm like, "One, we just kissed.
Eżatt. Aha.
Two, I am undetectable, so I can't transmit the virus to you." But in Samat, it was a whole
That's why I
experience.
asked, to be honest, because like people think that it's transmissible just by kissing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like you said, anyway, now that you know, you'd probably use protection anyway.
Yeah.
It's a consensual relationship, you know, we both have to agree on that. But yeah, it must have been a bit.
Then he's like, "You want to go for dinner?" I'm like, "Actually, I think I
No.
lost my appetite."
You didn't pass the test, basically.
I mean, it takes you back to when I was first diagnosed, and like that whole stigma and shame that goes with it, because that's
Yes.
the thing with HIV. I mean, it won't kill you, but there's just so much shame and stigma that's intertwined with it. So that's always a constant journey to like, which is why I'm doing what I'm doing now and talking about it as much as I can.
Exactly. So, okay, so if a person had to come up to you and they tell you like they're scared to go check themselves, what would you tell them?
Okay, I mean, I can understand the fear. I mean, I've been there as well. Like when you're going to get tested, you're always a bit like, "Oh my God, what comes
Is
out?
that?
What if I have something?" Okay, so if you have something, at least you can treat it, right? I mean, with HIV, I think a lot of people are afraid of HIV, but there are other STIs. I mean, most of them are curable nowadays, like gonorrhea, syphilis. They're curable. HIV, unfortunately, to this day, is not, but manageable.
Is that?
So I understand the fear, but at the same time, let's say you are positive, but you're afraid of a positive diagnosis. It's gonna get worse for you if you do. Like if you have a problem, you can tackle it. So you get tested, you go on treatment. If that's the worst case scenario, technically speaking, I mean, if you get a positive diagnosis, you go on treatment, your life goes on. I mean, it's still a hurdle and it's another stumbling block, but you know, that's life at this point in time. So I do understand the fear, but knowing is much better than not knowing. Plus, you end up agonizing of what if and what if not. So it's just better to rip the Band-Aid off, go get tested. And if it's positive, you can actually do something about it.
Okay. And I've heard that people can get tested for STIs through Mater Dei. So
there is a GU clinic at Mater Dei. It's free. You book. They give you an appointment, and you go there, and they screen you for everything. So HIV, syphilis, gonorrhea, chlamydia, the works. There are also private clinics which tackle this as well. And we are also doing at this moment, because I'm with Checkpoint Malta, it's an HIV NGO. I should have mentioned that in the beginning.
It's okay, we can talk about it now.
And basically, we are doing community testing. So people come, it's all anonymous, and we do rapid HIV tests. So you come there, we do a quick evaluation, a quick survey, everything is anonymous, and within 20 minutes you will know if you're positive or negative, basically.
And how do you do that? Is it a swab? Is it taking
No,
blood?
so basically it is, you get a small lancet, like literally a small lancet. You know how the diabetes ones are?
Okay.
So you draw blood from there. Then we have these pipettes, which we fill with blood. We have a test strip, which we peel and put it on. Add a little buffer, and in 20 minutes, the strip will tell me if it's positive or if it's negative.
Amazing, okay. And if somebody comes out as positive to Checkpoint Malta, are there some channels that they can reach out to the community or like to
So
deal with it?
we wanted to have the proper infrastructure in place for this, obviously, because it can be a very traumatic experience. So what we did for this is one, we partnered with the hospital, with Mater Dei, and also Sexual Health Malta.
Okay.
On this, so I get lots of condoms and like information leaflets and whatever. But if we have a positive diagnosis, we fast track them to the GU clinic, basically, and also the Gozo General Hospital, because we also run it we do one in Malta and one in Gozo once a month. It's a pilot project until December, and if it's positive, they're referred the next day.
Okay.
And basically what happens there is they do a confirmatory test, because it's standard practice here that you test twice. So if you get one positive, you make a confirmatory test. And if it comes back positive, then we start the treatment route, basically. Apart from that, since it's also traumatic, we're not talking about just medical, physiological.
Mental as well.
We're talking
right?
about also mental. So
Yes.
we've also partnered up with HIV Malta in this regard. And if the person wants, we can put them in touch with them, and they will offer some sessions for free to help counsel them through this, basically.
That's amazing because not everybody has a support system, right?
No, and it's very important. It's very important. I mean, for me, speaking from my experience, was a very isolating experience. And I had a proper, support system in place, let alone someone who has no support system. So it's very important.
And I think most people, like when you talk about HIV and AIDS, unfortunately, they associate that with the LGBTIQ community. So I spoke about this last time in my previous session as well, that most people are actually heterosexual that get it. So how do you think we can overcome the stigma by associating with everyone, not just that community?
I mean, yeah, this is a thing. Most people in Malta, at least, they still think, oh, it's a gay thing, you know what I
Is
mean?
that,
And it's not a gay thing. I mean, obviously, men who have sex with men are a risk group, but there are other risk groups as well. The thing is, if you are a partner, generally who is the receiver, you are more likely at risk to contract it. Now, what I would always say is, this is my mantra, you're having sex, then you go get tested. It's just part and parcel. Every 6 months, you go and get tested. At the end of it all, it doesn't discriminate. I mean, it's a virus. So it doesn't care if you're gay, it doesn't care if you're straight, bi, whatever.
exactly. And what advice would you give to people who are in relationships or polyamorous, who are scared of talking about protection with their partner?
What do you mean?
So some people, for example, when they're about to have sex, they say, okay, can we use a condom, for example? And the other person's like, no, it feels better without it.
I think every person needs to discuss the parameters of their sexual life before going in, and everyone should be on board at the same time.
Yeah.
So there shouldn't be this pressure and whatever. So if they're both comfortable doing something, then that's within their right at the end of it all. I mean, there are different ways. There are condoms as well if people want to practice safer sex. Also, there is PrEP nowadays. PrEP is basically, I like to explain it like this. So women, you take the pill every day, you don't get pregnant. And if you have like a risky encounter, you go the next day and you get the morning after. But now PrEP is a bit like the pill you take every day. So you can take the pill every day, you can have sex with or without a condom, and you will not be at risk of contracting HIV because it is a preventative measure. It's basically a combination of 2 anti-HIV drugs, antivirals, which you build up in your system, and that means the virus cannot actually take root in your body.
Okay, and do you need to be taking this for a certain amount of time before
So
having
there are
sex?
different ways of doing it. There is daily, which is exactly like the pill. You take it at the same time during every day.
But with the pill, for example, I know it takes 2 or 3 months to actually have an effect. And if
You'll
you're on
need to take
antibiotics-
a certain amount of time
All right,
for it to like build up.
Exato,
But then after that time, you're fine. And you can also do it on demand, technically, as well. So if you know you're going to have sex on a Saturday, for example, you'll take PrEP on the Friday, on the Saturday, and on the Sunday.
And you need a prescription for this?
Yes, you would need a prescription.
Okay.
Primarily because you need to be HIV negative to take PrEP. In the sense that, why? So the drug combination of PrEP is 2 anti-HIV drugs. They aren't enough if you're positive
Okay.
to control the virus. So you don't want to get resistance from the strand of virus that you have. So what they do is they make sure that you are negative. Once you are negative, you can start PrEP. If you are positive, then you go on treatment. There's also PEP. PEP is like the morning after pill, basically. You need to take it within 72 hours. It's a course. It's also very expensive. So we're talking 400 plus euros
Whoa.
here. Yeah.
Okay.
And
Okay.
obviously, that is something we kind of need to tackle as well, because not everyone has
The money.
access to those resources, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Plus, it's very time restrained, so you need to start within 72 hours, otherwise, it does not work, and you need to take it over a period of time.
So if someone was raped, for example, and they need access to this, does Mater Dei provide it for free?
I believe they do have some emergency reserves there.
Good. Okay. Just in case. All right. And do you think in Malta, for example, my sex education at school was a bit of a joke. We just spoke about abortion. What do you think we can do better in terms of raising awareness about STIs, HIV, etc.?
Talk about them.
Like we're doing now.
Like we're doing now. I mean, I'm 31 now. My secondary school sex ed was a church school background, so
Okay.
mostly abstinence and diagrams. I think we need to actually prepare people to have sex and be like, listen, you can have sex. There are different ways of doing it. There are certain precautions you can take. There are also certain viruses and infections that you can contract, what these symptoms are, how to mitigate them, how to protect yourself against them, how to deal with them if you're test positive for any of them, which I think we still don't have yet. I'm not sure if it's changed now. I'm not at school anymore.
I don't think it has, to be honest. No, we just had PSD. I don't know if it was the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a bit in biology for those who had biology, that's what I remember at JC, where everyone would burst out laughing when we're doing the genitalia and how to draw them and all this
Yeah.
stuff and how it works.
Yeah.
But I think it works both ways. Like at the end of the day, like you're saying, we're all going to have sex, unless you're really strong in your faith, and I respect that. But if you're going to have sex, you need to be responsible and you need to be safe, right? And that's
The
it.
thing is, sex is still very much taboo in Malta. We don't like talking about sex. Like none of us are having sex.
It's like a heart,
Sex? Us?
What is
no.
this?
So, I mean, it's part of being human at the end of it all. Just make sure you have all the information at your disposal and that you are comfortable with what you are doing. That is also very important.
For sure. So, to close it off a bit, would you like to say anything about Checkpoint Malta and how people can get in touch with Checkpoint Malta to make an appointment?
So, they can get in touch with us on Facebook. They can also send us an email on antonella@checkpoint.mt because she's the one that takes care of our bookings. But yeah, I mean, anything about information, access to treatment, any queries, they can just message us on our Facebook page. I mean, we're volunteers, so sometimes it might take some time to reply.
Yeah.
But we do our best to try and be timely in our responses. But yeah, I mean, best way is always through Facebook.
Thank you. And well done for your effort.
Thank you. Thank you
Thanks.
very much. Thank you
Okay.
for having me.
Thanks, guys. If you have any taboo topics you'd like to talk about on air, please reach out to me. And as Mark said, you can reach out to Checkpoint Malta for any HIV queries or appointments. Thank you.